Tonight, I am joined by Ryan Price. He's a Democrat running for state representative in Indiana's 66th district. So help me welcome him to the stage. Hello, Ryan. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you for joining me this evening.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with who can actually vote for you? Where are you?
If you live in Indiana House District 66, that's the district that I would be representing if elected. That is most of Clark County, some of Scott County, and some of Jefferson County down here in southern Indiana.
And what do you do for your day job?
I've had lots of experiences in my life. Currently, I'm a project manager for a large corporation. I'm one of the people that make sure that you can get gas at the gas station. So I'll just summarize it at that. It's a lot more detailed, but it's boring.
Yeah, but I want to talk about, you told me you had a different aspiration originally. What was your original aspiration in life?
Well, growing up, I played a lot of music. I had some musicians in my family. I went to school for music and sound engineering. So younger, I wanted to be in a band. I did that for a while. I played in a few bands. I got to, get paid for those gigs. I was a house drummer in a blues bar for a while. I had my own recording studio for a little while. So I was always into that sort of field of things. Music is culture. So the more music you listen to, the more cultured you are, basically.
Yeah. Are you into the history of all the songs?
Yeah, I had music history class too. That was a fun class. Imagine School of Rock, but just a lot more in depth than that. It's not just your Zeppelins and stuff. It's everybody. There's a lot of music theory and things like that go into it. So, yeah, I'm 42. So I grew up like 90s grunge, 90s hip hop, the 2000s music, that kind of thing. So, and then my parents are older, so I also got the 70s and the 60s hits and everything.
Okay. Well, who do you prefer, Biggie or Tupac?
Oh gosh. It just depends on it just depends on the mood, honestly. I don't really have a lot of favorites. I could probably name like some top people in genres, like people are like, oh, who's the best band, Zeppelin or the Beatles? And it's like, well, you're also forgetting about X, Y, and Z too, so.
Yeah. Also apples and oranges.
Yeah. Not the same styles, but
No,
they all get roped in together. And it's like, I grew up listening to everything. I took piano lessons when I was a kid playing classical music. I've been in rock bands, blues bands, reggae bands, just name it. I love all music.
That's great. Well, I mean, I hope that you get to pick a candidate song one day because I'd be interested to see what you would pick. But tell me about your family or pets.
I am 42. I am married, and I've been with my wife since 2007. So when we started dating, we got married in 2012. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. They are both extremely funny and smart little kids, and I love the hell out of them. Excuse my language.
Oh, it's all right. Well, tell me what made you want to run.
Just an accumulation of a lot of things. I grew up, again, listening to a lot of music, and culture through there kind of points to a lot of the problems that we've had in our lives. Whether that's wars that aren't necessary, which we've had a lot of the second half of my life, bad policies, bad leadership. America has for too long just been, how do I say this nicely, believing that trickle-down economics works, and it doesn't. There's too many big interests. Citizens United was a big failure for us. It took the power out of the people and put it into the corporations. Whoever's wallet's biggest wins, basically. And that's not what we need in representation. Representation should be what the people are, not what the businesses want them to be. So, for too long, I've just been sitting around watching TV and social media like everyone else, reading the news. And it's always been in the back of my mind, well, eventually the right person will come along. Eventually the right person will come along. And it just hasn't really happened in that way on a grand scale. You get some good people here and there. Don't get me wrong. There are some great leaders out there, some great politicians who really do want to make good change. But here in Indiana, we've had a supermajority that it's just about power and not, real policy. So, I'm just one person. I'm not going to tell you that I can go in there and make all these great changes, but I can be another tool in the bag to make those changes happen.
You can help break the supermajority. So maybe then Democrats will actually have an opinion on our laws in Indiana. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, there's this belief that Indiana is like a solid maroon state, but that's not really the case. I've lived here my whole life. I was born and raised here in Southern Indiana. A lot of my friends are Republicans. A lot of my friends are Democrats. A lot of them are independents, but they have to vote one way or another because the ticket says so. I'm not here to pick fights with people. I just want to make things better.
And you just happen to be a Democrat. So
Yep.
Let's talk about some of the issues, though. So one of the ones that I'm hearing a lot of people worry about is healthcare right now. What would you like to see in our healthcare? I know that, obviously you can't do something like universal healthcare for all. There are limitations from the state. But what would you like to see change here in Indiana with our healthcare?
Well, there should definitely be more transparency with like administration fees and things like that. There's a lot of hidden costs. A lot of you parents out there who've had a child have probably looked at your itemized bill from the hospital and saw that you had a fee to hold your child for the first time. These things are ridiculous. I'm sorry. There's a lot of things like that. Here in Southern Indiana, we had, a hospital closed down some years back. We don't really have a lot of access to medicine unless you live right off 65. That's where most of our hospitals or, emergency facilities are located, is right there by the interstate. It's a big district, and if you live in a rural part of that district, you're looking at least 30 to 45-minute drive for any kind of emergency care because EMS isn't going to service those areas.
Wow, that's a really long drive already, and that's before the healthcare cuts.
When I was a child, I remember an incident with some hornets, and my dad had to he got stung a lot by some ground hornets, had to drive 30 minutes to the hospital. There's nowhere close to where we were at the time. So we need more medical facilities, and we need more affordability to access those facilities.
Absolutely. We don't need to pay like 10 times the cost for a whole bottle of aspirin when you get 2 of them, for instance. But let's talk about like school vouchers. What are your thoughts on Indiana school vouchers? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you have a moderate stance on them?
It's another one of those type of policies where on the surface you're like, oh, this sounds great, but on the back end you're being shorted. Those vouchers take money from public schools and give them to the private schools. And you can say, well, I want that. But the private schools don't really have the same curriculum or the same guidelines that public schools do. So we have no oversight in those facilities, but yet we're funding them. So it is an issue, and maybe there's some middle ground, but I always grew up, private school was privately funded, and that was the end of the story. Public schools were publicly funded, and that was the end of the story. That's how I grew up. I don't know if that is the right call, but I just know that vouchers do take money from public schools. And the more that we take from public schools, the more they're going to fail. And that's just another way to privatize something for profit. A lot of these situations that we get into, that's usually what happens. We can talk about this in a minute, but like the property tax thing, SB1 that happened, that sounds like a blessing on the surface, but on the back end, you're going to end up paying a lot more a la carte for your services. So that's kind of how the voucher thing works too.
Yeah. And the other thing to mention is that like private schools and charter schools don't have the same rules that they have to abide by. So the public school, you have certain rights as a parent, like there are laws and they cannot infringe upon those rights. in private school and charter schools, you don't have those same rights, and they don't have to listen to you. They can also decide to not accept your student for any reason and expel them for any reason. And if they expel them, the public or the private school still keeps that money. They don't have to give it back. And then your kid's going to public school, so then we are paying for him to go to school or her to go to school again. On top of that, we are losing money. It makes no sense.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was saying. Like on the surface, you'd think, someone who would be interested in one of these voucher programs, you think, oh, this sounds great. And then maybe your other child goes to a different school or whatever the case may be, your neighbor, and they start talking about, oh, well, my school's, losing funding, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's the cycle that happens. If you want to go to private school, privately funded, that's all I can say. I do know that our public schools are struggling right now. We've got a lot of schools that are crowded, in the classrooms. We're talking like 30 students per teacher at this point. And there's legislation coming down from the state that they want all these changes made, but there's no actual guidelines to accomplish some of those. We've had some newer schools built here in this area, and they're already being overcrowded because of the growing population. So it's like you guys planned for the now, but not the future. And by the time the building is done, it's already jam-packed with all these students. And the sense of community gets lost in these large schools like that too. Again, everybody knows smaller classrooms it's just a more intimate setting where the students can learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fewer distractions and that sort of thing,
Yeah, and I think that if we probably look at the history of the voucher program, I would bet that we start to see schools start to decline after the voucher program was probably introduced, because a lot of the times these are kids that are already being sent to these schools. And it's like, so it's just a discount for these rich people. It's not actually helping the people it's supposed to help.
Exactly. Yeah. We always seem to cater to the top because they feed us essentially. And it shouldn't be that way.
I feel like they just steal them from us more than anything, but
well, they ration us.
Yes, there you go. That's more on the nose. All right. Well, it sounds like you're pro public school and pro funding our public schools. Is there anything else about the school systems you would like to see changed?
Well, again, there's policy that gets passed down. There's a new cell phone policy for public schools, and they said, hey, tell your kids to put them in these bags, but they don't provide funding for the bags. So imagine a high school teacher, right? And you've got 16, 17-year-old kid doesn't want to give up their phone. You're not allowed to really do anything about it, but the policy says you have to. So what do we do in those situations? Again, they're not providing any guidelines of how to actually proceed with some of the things they want done. And, teachers are already underpaid and underappreciated enough that we don't need to add more burden to them. They should be focusing on learning. If anything, I grew up in that era where teachers were always telling students, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket. Well, we know that's not true. If anything, this is the new generation of technology. We're just going to have to get used to it and learn how to use that technology. Make it fun for the kids, have them pull their phone out and record a funny video about a history lesson, something like that. I'm just spitballing here. I'm not a teacher. But learning is better when it's fun. You don't want to have to sit there and argue with the kid about a phone all the time, or worry about, okay, did I check off X, Y, and Z because it's required of me now?
Yeah. Because you could have them make videos if that's what they want to do. It's like, okay, make a video on, I don't know, whoever you're studying or whatever you're studying, like some sort of thing. As long as the information's in there, that's what's important, but they can do whatever they want with it, kind of a thing.
Yeah. You can even make it a challenge. The student that gets the most likes on their history video or whatever gets extra credit or something. I don't know,
Yeah, exactly. There's so much information on the internet too, especially on these apps now. It's kind of insane. But let's talk about some other budgetary things like Indiana state budget. What do you think about Indiana state budget? Does it need like a total overhaul? What do you think?
Well, it definitely does. Again, they're gutting all of our public services, and Braun wants to say that, oh, we're about to have a surplus, but yet we don't even see anything. We've got terrible roads. They're talking about tolling our interstates now, and they want to also. I read this the other day, a bill that was introduced about eliminating all property tax. Again, sounds good on the surface, but what they want to do is implement a service tax now. So now you'll be paying taxes for all services. And the problem with that is lower income people tend to have more services than upper income people. Your car breaks down more, your appliances break down, you have to have services. Everything's going to have an extra fee on it. And that's, again, a bigger burden for the people at the bottom.
It's a regressive tax. That's when
Oh, yeah.
and what a regressive tax is, it's when it sounds like a great idea, but it actually is putting more of a burden on the lower class because it's a higher percentage of their income than it would be for the upper class.
And they claim that it would be net zero, just be the same as it was through a state funding level. But they have a text in there that says if public schools don't have enough money from these, then they can start imposing fees to the local people that attend those schools. So again, you're just going to end up paying a la carte for everything, which will end up costing you more in the end.
Yeah, and I don't even understand why we do our school funding the way we do it. There has to be a better way to do it because I know other countries do it other ways. And because it doesn't make sense to me that your school's only good if you live in an affluent area. It should be that we have similar funding and everybody gets a similar education, a good education. That's why we should put all our money into the public schools instead of private schools.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing, this will probably sound bad, but it's just the truth. We put a lot of money into sports funding, new football stadiums and things like that for our schools when, that could be books. We just need basic bleachers and some turf out here. It doesn't have to be all razzle dazzle for a high school game,
Some of these high school stadiums are wild though.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially if you go into the Hamilton County area. But let's talk a little bit more about the budget. You were telling me something earlier about how the park system is funded.
So yes, down here in this area, District 66, we have several parks. I've got Charlestown State Park, the Clark County State Park, otherwise known as the Henryville Forestry. And then right outside the district is Hardy Lake and Clifty Falls. And turns out most of the park funding does not come from your tax dollars. It actually comes from entrance fees to the park and camping fees. And some of those places are lucky enough to be able to sell timber rights. So some of that money can go back to the park. Only 10% of those timber sales will go back to that specific park. The rest is sent upstate and allocated for whatever they see fit at the time. They're also not allowed to increase any of their fees at all. And Clark County Park doesn't even have an entrance gate. I've been going to that park my entire life. There are some things that happen at that park. I'll just leave it vague because there's, people can just walk in and do whatever they want. There have been a lot of things I've heard, like dead animals left in the parking lot, just because people go there to dump their stuff, And when I say dead animals, I don't mean like cats and dogs. I mean like horses and cattle and stuff,
And they just expect the park to take care of it?
Yeah, and the worst part is they're actually right now under a mandatory 25% understaffment. So they have to be 25% under what they normally would operate at. So, if you've got 10 employees, ideally for your park, we got to take that down to at least 7. And a lot of these people aren't paid very much. They have a lot of jobs to do at that park. So you'll have one guy or two guys, maybe that's a master electrician, master plumber, master carpenter, and they make less than 50 a year. It's like, gosh, if you guys went to any other sector, you would probably double that, that kind of money.
At least.
But it's the love of the parks themselves. That's why they stay there. And these are great resources for this area. Charlestown is a huge draw for a lot of people. The Clark State Forest is a big draw for a lot of people. Clifty Falls out there in Jefferson County, it's very picturesque. If you've never been there, I would recommend going. A lot of people go there for photography shoots and things like that. So, yeah. And then they also have some issues with the jobs that they have to outsource to. So let's say that there needs to be a new building put in the park, maybe the shelter house fell down or something, So if a job is small, that park manager can reach out and get 3 bids on a contract and choose the contractor that they want to go with. Once that job hits a certain dollar amount, apparently there are a list of people they are allowed to use for big jobs, and only like 2 people ever get those jobs.
Well, that sounds like a scam all the way around, Ryan.
Yeah, it's kind of strange that once you hit, 6 figures or more, the bids go away, and it's just, oh, we'll give the contract to X, contractor over here. We know they're going to do good work. So big money goes to one individual company all the time on these projects. When really we should still be bidding big contracts. There are plenty of other local contractors that can still do these jobs. So why aren't we putting money in their pockets, the local contractors, instead of outsourcing?
That's a great question. This reminds me, and it kind of sounds like the story that the Indy started a couple months ago about the 3 kings of Indiana, where it's like everything that goes through the Indiana government that's like a high bid contract like that is somehow funneled through like 3 people's businesses. So to me, that sounds like there might be things like misappropriation of funds, charging us way more than it's actually worth, not to mention it doesn't actually help the local economy.
It's like George Carlin said, it's a big club and you ain't in it.
So you would like to introduce legislations to fix those things, I take it?
Oh, yeah. We should be able to bid all contracts for these types of things. We want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck on these deals and not, beholden to one company who can just charge what they want.
There needs to be more transparency.
Oh, yeah. And the timber sales thing, I understand that they want the resources to allocate to other parts of the state. Sure, that's fine, but we could at least bump it up to like 20 or 25% of the timber you sell. You get to keep that money, something like that.
Yeah,
it should try to benefit the park directly.
It should benefit the park directly. And I thought we were bragging about some surplus. So I'm confused why these parks don't have money if we have such a surplus.
Well, we spend it on things like helipads and SUVs. So,
yeah, that's problematic. Well, tell me about what you believe and think should be legislated when it comes to reproductive freedoms.
That sounds like government overreach to me. Doctors and patients should make those decisions by themselves. Women's rights are being trampled on right now. It's not. That's one of those things that it's not going to be an easy decision for anyone to make. But again, the government should not be telling you how to live your life, especially with your own health and well-being. I've had some experience in that myself in my life. We lost a child before our second child was born. And, there were some complications with that. So I'm all for some women reproductive rights.
Yeah, and once you see that it's like the issue isn't the birth control portion of it, it's the part where it's like this is an actual medical procedure that is needed to save people's lives.
Correct. So, yeah, had that not been available to us, I might have ended up a single dad. Who knows? So.
Oh yeah,
and we did end up having a second child eventually. So everything worked out for us.
Yeah, but who knows if that would have happened. I mean, there's been women in Indiana who have lost their ability to have children. And even back in, like, I think it was October of 2024, there was a woman who died because she became septic and died and went into organ failure because they did not give her medical care fast enough because of the abortion ban.
Yep, it's a lot of bureaucracy and government overreach.
Absolutely. I would just like to see like legislation put in place to like stop that. Great. Because otherwise I think it's just going to continue to get trampled on.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, give them an inch, they take a mile, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. We've gone so far right. We need to balance things back out a little bit. Tell me about what you would like to see in, if any, in Indiana's laws to protect and defend LGBTQIA plus rights.
I mean, we can do, legislation that protects, housing, jobs, fairness for everybody, marriage equality. Again, more government overreach. How are you going to tell people how to live their personal life? I just don't understand that, and if you don't agree with it, don't live that way. Simple enough, do your own thing. Everybody's got their own way to walk. Let them do it.
Just like my heterosexual marriage has no impact on your heterosexual marriage, their homosexual marriage has no impact on your relationships if you are not a homosexual.
Yeah.
And not in that relationship.
I don't understand all the hubbub. I've got family and friends, in that community. They're all great people.
Who you love has nothing to do with if you are a good or bad person, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you're a person.
Well, yeah, you're supposed to judge people on how they treat others. I mean, that's all that it is. I don't care how you want to choose to live your life, as long as what you do isn't hurting others or is consensual or whatever. That's cool with me. I don't care.
Yeah, as long as it's between two consenting adults, I am fine with it.
Yeah, protect the children, of course.
Correct. Like
release
this whole oh my gosh, release the files.
Who said that?
I don't know. Yeah, and then it's just like all of these, like, I still hate that in Indiana we have this weird age of consent where it's like 16, and it's really weird. Like, because this was like a Dr. Phil episode, because when I was in high school, there was somebody in my grade who was dating, when she was 16, like a 40-year-old. And because of that, it was allowed. And to me, that's not what that was. That wasn't consensual. Like, I don't know. I don't think that you can consent like that at 16.
Sorry, I was really fighting the urge to tell a joke. I'm just gonna not do that one here.
Yeah, don't do that. That's a bad idea. But let's talk about the housing crisis, switching gears. Where do you think the biggest problem is?
So, Indiana does have like limits on property taxes, and they're trying to, ease our property taxes with the Senate bill that was passed, or even erase all property taxes potentially in the future. But that only goes so far. There's no limit on what an assessor can value your home at. So even if we cap, your property value at, 2%, 3%, whatever, the assessor can come in and say, okay, well, this year your house is worth $200,000. And then, a couple years down the road, they can say, well, this house is worth $500,000 now. Your percentage stayed the same, but the value that they placed on your home has more than doubled. So it'd be nice to see if there was some kind of regulation that we could figure out for something like that. We also need some kind of incentive for developers to develop actual affordable housing. A lot of the new properties that go up, you're like, okay, well, they're putting a new neighborhood in here. What's this going to be? You find out, starting price is $300,000, $350,000. It's like, who can afford these houses right now? And it's because they don't have an incentive to build the smaller homes. They want to build 2,000 square foot plus houses when, a starter home for, a single person or maybe just a couple with no children, 1,000 feet would be a great starter home for somebody like that, and it's a lot more affordable. So there's got to be some kind of balance that we can figure out. But those are some issues with housing. It's the profit margin of the developers. The cost of the material is also a big one. And then, like I said, the assessments have no limit on what your home can be valued at.
Yeah, and that was actually happening just last year. I know my mom and my stepdad, they had to go to the county assessor and they had to contest the amount that they valued their house for because they had almost doubled the amount that they said their house assessed for in a year. And that was happening to like some people too in Johnson County. I heard some people talking about it as well. So this is like a real thing that really impacts people. It wastes your time. It wastes your money. I think it's something that people need to pay attention to. Do you have things happening down in Southern Indiana where like big companies are buying up a bunch of the houses too?
There is some of that. I don't know how much exactly. It's kind of hard to track some of that data. But I know in my own community, there are a couple of places, or excuse me, a couple of businesses that own homes here. It's not a lot, but I'm sure in the surrounding area, it's probably much greater.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue around here. I know they were trying to buy up whole neighborhoods around where I live for a while.
Yeah, I know that like nationally, I think ownership of a home by a corporation is like around 10 or 11%, something like that, which is wild to think about. Yeah, I know some people want to be landlords and own a few properties and as a retirement plan. That's fine. That's fine. I'm fine with that. But if you're a large corporation that comes in and buys up, first time home price type homes, and you say, all right, well, we bought 50 of these in this neighborhood, and, now let's jack up the rent 20%. You're preventing people from actually having a real investment into their community, because if you own a home somewhere, you are more likely to really be involved in that place, as opposed to just renting where you think, I'll probably be out of here in a year or two when my lease is up. So, home ownership is important because it actually brings you into the community a little bit more.
Makes you care. I think also if the vouchers went away and more people were going into the public schools, I do think that people would invest in the public schools more, is also something to keep in mind too.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about some home issues that people are having, like the utility bills. They are so high, especially in Southern Indiana. What is going on and how do we fix this?
Well, we have to outsource a lot of our energy usage in this state to other states. And now that we are seeing a big boom in Indiana because of all the tax breaks large corporations are getting, a lot of data centers are being, brought up to be built, and we're actually getting one here in Southern Indiana. There's a big concern from the people that live here that the water rates will go up, the electricity rates will go up. My understanding, I don't think we'll have an issue with the water here, but Meta is going to build a solar farm that puts electricity back into the grid on a regional scale. So there is still a potential for some, energy surges and maybe brownouts or something like that. So we definitely need to have more power in this state. What's that look like? I don't know, but we definitely shouldn't limit our options. If you want only one way to power your state, you're not doing it right. I know solar farms are kind of a big deal down here. I know you guys got the wind farms up north. Down here, solar farms are a thing, and there's a big pushback against that. And I understand, we don't want good farmland just being wasted with some solar panels. Something I've talked about with some other people are things like solar canopies for existing, structures. Imagine like you pull up to Walmart, okay, and the parking lot is just covered with 12-foot high solar panels. You can park under it, keeps your car cooler, keeps you dry out of the rain, and it's putting electricity back in the grid. Things like that, I think, would be a really good way to kind of help offset And we're not taking away any of the valuable farmland. And if we do want to put it on land, it needs to be on things that are buildable, like old dump sites, things like that. So we just have to be conscious of what we're doing. It's a need. We do live in a digital age. We need electricity. And we just can't rely on one source to provide all of that. So we have to look at all the options available and do what's best for the community to actually implement those.
So you're not saying that we should put all our money into nuclear energy?
Yeah, I saw that they're talking about these miniature nuclear substations throughout the state. I don't know enough about them. My understanding is that like nuclear power is a lot safer now. They don't have like the radiation problems that they used to. But again, I don't know enough about it to be an expert. It's one of those scary subjects, though, that we all grew up hearing about, so it would be nice if there was some transparency in all of that.
Absolutely. I think that also I would like to see an impact study, like what are the impacts of those? Because at the end of the day, that's what people are fearing is the impact of the nuclear reactors on the community. Is it going to be safe? Is it going to cause cancer? I mean, literally, when we're talking about the wind farms, people up there hate them, hate them. They complain that they're noisy and that they don't even work part of the time. And some people even believe that it makes your blood run backwards. Fun fact. It does not. Anyone watching, it does not make your blood run backwards, but that is something that someone brought up at a town hall one time. So that was a thing. But like stuff like that, there's like propaganda against it. But I just would love to see the legislature doing some positive things and positive education and positive things and adding to the grid would be great. And I love the idea of doing the canopies. That's actually what they do in Cincinnati for the zoo. And it works great. It keeps your car cool. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there are simple solutions where we can have the best of both worlds. It doesn't have to be a black and white, I'm right, you're wrong kind of situation. There are opportunities to meet in the middle. So,
yeah, and then it's like that's better for your cars too. It's less wear and tear on your car during the summertime. And if it's raining, you're getting rained on less. It's a lot of good things.
Absolutely.
Okay, but let's talk about, the toll roads. We kind of mentioned it earlier, but do we need the toll roads on our interstate?
I can't imagine why, unless we got sold something else that, was promised to be good, and now we have to pay for it on the back end. I don't know how many times we're going to go through this, but that's what happens. All we keep doing is saying, hey, we're going to save you money here. And then, a month later, oh, by the way, you got to pay for it this way.
Yeah.
So down here in Southern Indiana, we have, 65 cuts right through Clark County. And there are 4 bridges down here, 2 of which are tolled. They want to toll the other ones as well. And I think I read that those tolls bring in about $100 million a year for the state. It's really like $200 million total, but it's split between Indiana and Kentucky. I can't tell you how much people hate that. And the tolls go up every single year. Every single year. It started off, I think, like $1 if you had a pass and $2 if you didn't have a pass. And they've upped it, like a percentage. I think the first year it went up like 5 cents and then it went up like 7 cents. I don't even know what it's up to now, but I try not to cross the toll bridges at all cost. So why do we need to toll them now? We've had roads and highways for decades. What changed that we all of a sudden have to start, paying another tax on just to drive somewhere?
It's ridiculous.
And I can tell you right now, if people can, they will bypass those tolls by not driving on those roads. They'll take back roads. I could drive up 65 to get north to Scottsburg if I wanted to, but I could also drive up Highway 31. It runs parallel next to it. There are plenty of ways to get around that.
Yep, been there on 31, done that. I don't take the toll road to go to Chicago either. I go through Gary to avoid it.
Yeah. So that happens a lot here. Like I said, two of the bridges down here that aren't tolled, because there's a lot of traveling between the states here. A lot of Hoosiers go to Louisville to work, and some of them come over here to work. So the people that don't want to pay tolls, they all funnel into the one or two bridges that they can that don't pay tolls, and then there's traffic jams, all morning long and all evening. So it's a big headache.
Absolutely. And then it like puts more stress on the roads that aren't toll roads. And half the time they've sold our toll roads to like a company. So we're not even getting the money.
Correct. Yep. It's all about privatization. If we can send somebody $1, they keep part of it and then send the rest back to the state, I guess we're okay with that. But really it should just go right to the state to fund the things we need. I don't need a middleman, taking his dime.
Yeah, I think people are really, once they know that that's what's happening, people are really tired of it, just like they're tired of paying for Israel's health care. It's like, why are we paying for their health care? We don't even get health care here.
Yep, and our representatives, state, federal, whatever, they all receive tax-funded, health benefits, but they won't approve it for us,
Yeah, that's the reason why I think that Congress should not have benefits their whole life. I only think they should get benefits while they are serving, because then they would be more likely to put something out like Medicare for all. Because there's no incentive for them otherwise. They're good. Why would they need that?
Yeah, well, I think we are at the era where a lot of people want term limits across the board. Good luck getting it, that you're talking for somebody to essentially eventually fire themselves. So
I would fire myself. I would not want to be in Congress for the rest of my life. Maybe I need to run for the Congress. Elect me and I will enact term limits because I don't want to be a career politician. That's never something that I wanted to do. I didn't want to do politics in the first place. We were talking about this earlier. It's like I do this because that's what I feel like I need to do in this timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A lot of people are turning out that way. When I went to Indianapolis to file back on the 7th, over 20 people were there. None of them were career politicians. All of them were just passionate about their community. And they were all saying, you know what, I've never run for office, but I'm ready to run now. And I think a lot of us have gotten that way. A buddy of mine, I ran into the other day, we were hanging out, and he was asking me questions about running, and he's a Republican. And he agreed with a lot of the things that I was saying. And then the next day he ended up texting me, he goes, I'm interested in maybe running for some kind of office. And it's like, great, you know what? We need fresh blood. Even if you are a Republican, again, I've got friends on both sides. That's just Indiana, Oh, yeah. So it's like, I encourage you to make some kind of change. He's one of my fishing buddies, so I see him all the time. Why not? Why don't you want to be the change that you want to be, kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think it's short-sighted to say that all Republicans are crazy. Like, I think that that's not the case. I think a lot of the times it's just people are unaware of what's actually going on and how how their representatives voting on things actually affects their daily life.
Yeah, and I think a big part of Indiana is made up of independents. We are all Hoosiers like to think that we are different. We're not going to do things the normal way, as we saw with like the redistricting. But this state has like a stronghold on parties, right? Just in general. If you wanted to be an independent candidate, it's a lot more hoops to jump through than to be a Democrat or a Republican candidate.
It is. It's like 1,000 signatures.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of work to run as an independent. And people are always like, well, we need a third option. But then when the third option does run, they don't vote for them because they don't believe there's going to be enough votes for them. It's a circle of never ending. What are we doing?
How Bernie Sanders did it, I will never know. The man must have magic powers is the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, he figured out the secret recipe,
I guess. But let's talk about that. If you are elected, would you put forth and support legislation to do ranked choice voting in Indiana?
I think it's a great idea. I didn't really know a whole lot about ranked choice voting before 2025, and then I looked into it some, and it's like, wow, this actually makes sense, because it's kind of like a round robin of who's going to win, like the marble race. You got the five marbles, and you bet the one, and you're like, well, I like this one, but I also like that one too to win, and it just gives you some more options down the road. Your vote's not just kind of thrown away that way.
Absolutely. I think that we need more education on that. That's something that I keep meaning to put on my social media. And I know you do social media stuff too now since you're running. But yeah, I would love to see that here, because I think what I've heard the most since doing this is people are like, I don't necessarily 100% feel like the Democrat Party represents me. It's the thing that is closest that represents me. And I understand that we only have a two-party system at this time.
Correct. Yeah. And, again, because I grew up here in Indiana with, a lot of Republican family members, things like that. I get it. That's just part of the belief here. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it's easy to forget that the bird of freedom needs two wings to fly. So
yeah, well, maybe
it takes all of us.
3, 4, 6. I would love it. I mean, come on, there is a whole stand-up piece about this, that if we get ranked choice voting, we can have ridiculous parties and make them have debates. It will make politics more interesting. It'll make it sometimes ridiculous, because apparently Canada has like the French party in Quebec, right? And he's like, I think we should lower the age for cigarettes for children. And it's like, no one's going to vote for that, but it's great entertainment, and it gives like comedic relief in something that can be so dry.
Yes, sometimes politics can be a little fun and funny. There was a man that I saw some years back. His name was Vermin Supreme. He was running for president, and he wore a boot on his head. You just got to look him up yourself, okay?
Wow, okay.
He is a character.
That is funny. I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think that we need to lean into America's uniqueness, and that we are a melting pot, whether people want to accept that or not. It's what we are. And I think that when we lean into everybody's strengths, that's when we can shine. And when we try to continue to fit ourselves into a strict box, that's when we're going to continue to fail.
Absolutely. I think I mentioned it earlier with like the music thing. Music is culture. Food is culture. America, you can go anywhere you want. The same day you can have tacos, Chinese food, barbecue, whatever you want. And it's hard to find that anywhere else. So we have to remember that e pluribus unum, of many one. That's who we are. There's a lot of different people and a lot of different cultures, but we all just want the same things. We want great lives for our family and opportunities to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, we have a little bit of time. I was curious, I know this is a little bit off the beaten path, but talk about ICE. What do you think about what's going on with ICE in Minnesota, or the fact Indiana, Marion County just said that they will not let ICE use their detention center anymore because they're already overcrowded, for instance?
Yeah. I hate to see Americans fighting Americans. It's just bad all around. I don't care who the president is, but if we're going after people just for walking down the street, that's an awful thing. I couldn't imagine, going to the store with my kid, and the next thing you know, you go out to the parking lot with a cart full of groceries and you're being tackled by someone and separated from your child. If you want to do some kind of cleanup or whatever the case may be, that's fine, but it's got to be a scalpel approach, not the chainsaw approach. Obama caught a lot of flack. He deported a lot of people, but it was a little bit more of a precise way of doing it. He wasn't terrorizing people and families in the streets. Killing Americans on American soil is bad, period.
No other way to look at it, I think. Yeah, it's so tragic to me. I've been following some of the Minnesota stuff, and people are printing, like people with 3D printers are printing whistles to hand out to people to alert people when ICE is in the area. And like if you watch videos, you'll hear the whistles a lot of the time, but it's really interesting, like the response. Like I'm glad that people are in the streets, and I'm glad that they are standing up against this, because that is absolutely absurd that even happened.
Yeah, it just feels like they're trying to prime us for something much worse, and I just hope that everybody can see that.
Yeah, hopefully people wake up. Hopefully things will change. I'm trying to get people to take the approach we took for redistricting and just continue to call your representatives once a week about the same things, like impeach Trump, abolish ICE at this point.
Well, I know that a lot of people down here did call their reps and they still voted to redistrict. So I don't know if that's going to work for us. That's why we have to elect new representatives.
That too. Well, I meant the congressional representatives, because like we all, and it's like they still might vote the same way. But my thought is if we get everybody in the country doing it, then they can't all be that horrible. Because at the end of the day, I still believe that the career politicians are more afraid of people not reelecting them than they are of a man who is unlikely to finish his term because of his health conditions and his age.
Yeah. Unfortunately, politicians spend a lot of time worrying about re-elections instead of, policy, because they want to be career politicians. Everybody knows politics is a dirty game, and people keep telling me that, politics is a dirty game. It's like, I understand getting into it. I don't want to play games, though. I just want to try to make the communities better. Again, I'm 42. I'm like the Oregon Trail generation, no child left behind, all the stuff, we were promised all these great things from Reagan and everybody after him. But it just hasn't quite turned out that way. The prosperity is being funneled to the top. I've got 2 kids, like I said, 10 and 4. It would be nice if I could help fulfill the promise that was made to me, to them.
Yeah, it definitely, you're on the very beginning of the millennials then. I'm also a millennial. I'm 37. It sounds like your whole campaign is just coming at this with transparency. Would that sum up like how you would explain it?
I'm a working class candidate. I have a 9-to-5 job that I have to go to every day. So I am just like regular people. I have no special interest. I don't have like a huge stock portfolio. I've got a little bit of a retirement account, and that's it. I just want to be the representation that actually lives here. We often get forgotten down here in southern Indiana. Most of our news comes from Louisville, so a lot of the times the State House news doesn't even make it down to us, and my local reps don't really communicate with us very well about the State House going on. So hopefully I can help change that.
Yeah. Who's your current representative?
For 66, it's a gentleman named Zach Payne, and then Senator Garten is my state Senate representative.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know much about them. There wasn't a lot of information about them when I looked them up. But I want to thank you for coming on. I know we're coming up to about an hour here, so I don't want to take up all your night, but I want people to know where they can find you, where they can donate to you, because you're a grassroots campaign, correct?
Correct. I don't want any corporate donations or anything like that. Just everyday folks, whatever you can help out with the campaign. If it's only $1 or $5, that's fine. My website is pricein66.com, PRICEIN66.com. And if you have a question or anything for me, you can email me directly, ryan@pricein66.com. It goes to my phone.
Amazing. I love that. Yes. And again, if it's just $1, that's okay. If that's all you can afford and you want to help Ryan out, it truly does make a difference, because every dollar counts in a grassroots campaign. And I'm sure you can be found. Are you on ActBlue or are you on Zephy?
I'm on ActBlue. There's a link on my website that'll take you right to it.
Oh, perfect. Well, is there anything else that you would like to tell the listeners before we sign off this evening?
I'll hit you with a couple quotes that I like. I don't know if you remember Ralph Nader. He ran for president a couple times back in the day as an independent, but he quoted saying, "Get turned on to politics or politics will turn on you." And Thomas Paine said, "If there be trouble, may it come in my time so that my children may know peace."
I love that. Very good. Well, thank you again. I truly appreciate this. And I hope we get to talk again soon and maybe meet in person. I'm so bummed I didn't get to come on the filing day because I was like, everyone was there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a huge crowd. It would have been great to see you up there.
Yeah, we'll have to get together at some point soon. Well, thank
Absolutely.
you. Have a great night and thank you again. And I'll see everyone soon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.